The blizzard hit Presidio, Texas on Christmas Eve 1881, an event so rare that folks would talk about it for generations. But for Nora Owens, it would forever mark the night she lost everything and found salvation in the same breath. She stood on the porch of the ranch house, where she had lived for 8 months as a married woman, her thin shawl doing nothing against the howling wind that cut through her dress and chilled her swollen belly. Her mother-in-law, Margaret Whitmore, stood in the doorway with arms crossed, her face hard as granite in the lamplight that spilled from inside. "You brought shame to this family," Margaret said, her voice somehow cutting through the wind. "My son is dead 3 months, and now you claim to carry his child. I know what you are. I know you were seeing that ranch hand before Thomas died." "That is not true," Nora said, her teeth chattering so hard she could barely form words. "This baby is Thomas's child. I swear it on everything holy." "Your swears mean nothing to me. I will not raise a bastard under my roof, and I will not let you sully my son's name any further. Leave. Now." Nora pressed a hand to her stomach, feeling the baby move inside her, 7 months along and strong. "Please, Mrs. Whitmore, the storm is getting worse. Let me stay until morning, and I will leave at first light. I will go back to my parents in San Antonio. Just do not make me go out in this." Margaret's eyes held no mercy, no softness, not even a flicker of doubt. "You should have thought of that before you dishonored my son. Get off my property." The door slammed shut, and Nora heard the bolt slide into place. She stood there for a moment, unable to believe this was happening, that anyone could be so cruel. Then the wind nearly knocked her off her feet, and survival instinct kicked in. She stumbled down the porch steps into the snow that was already ankle-deep and climbing. The Whitmore Ranch was 5 miles from town. Nora had no horse, no wagon, nothing but the clothes on her back and the few coins in her pocket that she had been saving secretly in case Margaret ever turned on her. She had feared this day but never imagined it would come like this, in the middle of a freak snowstorm that was already being called the worst winter weather Texas had seen in 50 years. She walked, 1 foot in front of the other, her arms wrapped around herself. The road was disappearing under the snow, and the wind pushed her sideways. She could barely see 10 feet ahead. Her hands went numb first, then her feet, and soon she could not feel her legs at all. She just kept moving because stopping meant dying, and she would not let her baby die because of that hateful woman's lies and cruelty. Thomas had been good to her. Their marriage had been brief but happy. He died when his horse threw him into a rocky ravine while checking fence lines. The head injury took him quickly, and Nora had been devastated. Then she discovered she was pregnant, and what should have been a blessing became a curse when Margaret decided that the timing was suspicious. Nothing Nora said made any difference. Margaret had convinced herself that her son could not have fathered this child, and no amount of truth would change her mind. Nora fell. The snow cushioned her landing, but she could not get up. Her legs would not work anymore. She tried to crawl, but her arms gave out too. She rolled onto her side, curling around her belly to protect the baby, and felt tears freeze on her cheeks. This could not be the end. It could not be. She did not know how long she lay there. Time stopped meaning anything. The cold did not hurt anymore, which she knew was a bad sign. She thought of her parents, who had moved to San Antonio years ago. She thought of Thomas and how much she had loved him. She thought of the baby who would never take a breath, never see the sun, never know that its mother had tried so hard to save it. Then there were hands on her, strong and sure, lifting her up. She tried to open her eyes but could not. She heard a man's voice, deep and worried. "Hold on, miss, I have got you. Stay with me now." She felt herself being lifted onto a horse, felt the warmth of a body behind her and arms holding her steady. The movement of the horse should have jostled her, but everything felt distant and soft. She drifted in and out, catching fragments of the world around her. When awareness came back fully, she was lying in a bed near a roaring fire. Blankets were piled on top of her, and she could feel her fingers and toes again, which meant they burned like they were on fire. She gasped in pain. "Easy now," that same deep voice said. "I know it hurts." "That is the feeling coming back. That is good. It means no frostbite." She turned her head and saw him for the first time. He was tall, even sitting in the chair beside the bed, with broad shoulders and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. His face was weathered from sun and wind, with strong features and eyes the color of storm clouds. He looked to be in his late 20s, maybe 30 at most. "The baby," she said, her voice hoarse. "Still moving," he said gently. "I checked. You have a fighter in there." Relief flooded through her so intensely that she started to cry. The man looked uncomfortable but handed her a handkerchief. "My name is Quinn Dalton," he said. "This is my ranch, about 2 miles from where I found you on the road. What were you doing out in that storm?" The whole story came pouring out between sobs. She told him everything about Thomas, about Margaret's accusations, about being thrown out into the blizzard. Quinn's face grew darker as she spoke, and by the end his jaw was clenched tight. "Margaret Whitmore did this," he said. "I know that woman. She comes into town acting like she is better than everyone. I never thought she would do something this evil." "She thinks the baby is not Thomas's," Nora said, wiping her eyes, "but it is. I loved my husband. I would never betray him." Quinn looked at her steadily. "I believe you. And even if it was not his, no reason on earth justifies what she did to you." "I need to get to San Antonio," Nora said. "My parents live there. They will take me in." "The storm is still going strong," Quinn said. "Nothing is moving on the roads. Even when it clears, it will be days before travel is safe, especially for a woman in your condition. You will stay here until you are strong enough and the weather is clear enough. No arguments." She wanted to protest, to tell him she could not impose, but exhaustion pulled at her, and the warmth of the fire and the softness of the bed were too much to resist. She fell asleep, still trying to form words of gratitude. Over the next few days, as the blizzard raged outside, Nora learned about the man who had saved her life. Quinn had inherited the ranch from his father 5 years ago and ran it with the help of 2 ranch hands who lived in the bunkhouse. He was not married, never had been, though he admitted that his mother back in Missouri kept sending him letters about suitable women she knew. "I figure if I am going to marry someone, it should be because I want to spend my life with her, not because she is suitable," he said as he brought her another bowl of stew on the 3rd day. Nora was feeling stronger now, able to sit up and move around the small cabin. It was a simple place, one large room with a kitchen area, a sitting area with the fireplace, and a bed in the corner where she slept. Quinn had been sleeping in the bunkhouse with his men, which she appreciated. It would not do for her reputation to be alone with a man, though after what Margaret had accused her of, she supposed her reputation was already ruined. "Your mother sounds wise," Nora said, taking the stew gratefully. "Suitable is a cold word for a marriage. Was your marriage warm?" Quinn asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. "I apologize. That is too personal a question." "No, it is fine," Nora said. "Yes, it was. Thomas was kind and funny. He used to bring me wildflowers for no reason. We were learning each other still, but I think we would have had a good life together." "I am sorry for your loss," Quinn said quietly. The storm finally broke on the 4th day, leaving Presidio under 3 feet of snow. Quinn rode into town to get supplies and came back with news. "I stopped by the Whitmore Ranch," he said, his face grim. Told Margaret I found you and that you were alive. Asked if she wanted to see you or send anything. What did she say? Nora asked, though she already knew. She said you were not welcome on her property and that as far as she was concerned, you could freeze in a ditch somewhere. Quinn's hands clenched into fists. I told her exactly what I thought of her Christian charity. I do not think I am welcome there any more either. I am sorry, Nora said. You should not have made an enemy for my sake. She was never a friend, Quinn said. And I cannot abide cruelty, especially not to someone carrying a child. Speaking of which, I talked to Doc Watson in town. He said he will come check on you once the roads are clearer, but he said at 7 months, you need to be careful not to overdo things. I feel fine, Nora said. Strong enough to travel soon. About that, Quinn said, sitting down across from her. I have been thinking. San Antonio is a long journey, especially in winter. And you said your parents do not know about the baby yet, since Thomas just died 3 months ago and mail has been slow. That is true, Nora admitted. I wrote to them about Thomas's death, but I have not told them about the baby. I did not know how to put it in a letter. So they are not expecting you, Quinn said carefully. And they do not know you are with child. No, Quinn leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Stay here, at least until the baby is born. It is too dangerous to travel now, and you would be cutting it close, arriving right when you are due. Stay here, have the baby safely, get your strength back, and then decide what to do next. I cannot do that, Nora said immediately. It would not be proper. People would talk. People already are talking, according to Margaret, Quinn pointed out. At least here you would be safe and warm. I will sleep in the bunkhouse. My men are good people, they will not gossip. And honestly, miss, I would feel better knowing you and the baby are looked after. Nora felt tears prick her eyes again. Why are you being so kind to me? You do not even know me. My mother raised me to help people who need it, Quinn said simply. And maybe I know what it is like to be alone and far from family. When my father died and I came out here to run this ranch, I did not know a soul. People here helped me, taught me what I needed to know. I am just passing that on. She agreed to stay, at least until the baby was born. It seemed foolish to risk the journey when she had a safe place right here. And truth be told, she was drawn to Quinn in a way that both comforted and frightened her. He was easy to talk to, and his presence made her feel protected in a way she had not felt since Thomas died. The weeks passed, and January turned to February. The snow melted slowly, and the ranch work continued. Nora helped where she could, cooking meals and mending clothes, grateful to have something to do besides sit around. Quinn protested at first, worried she would overwork herself, but she insisted she needed to feel useful. They fell into a comfortable routine. Quinn would come in for breakfast before heading out to work. He would return for lunch, and they would eat together, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in Missouri, about his father who had been a hard but fair man, about his younger sister who had married a shopkeeper and seemed happy. She told him about her childhood in San Antonio, about how she had met Thomas at a church social, about her dreams of having a big family someday. How many children did you want? Quinn asked one afternoon as they sat by the fire, Nora knitting baby clothes from yarn he had bought in town. 4 or 5, she said with a smile. Enough to fill a house with noise and laughter. What about you? I always thought 2 or 3 would be good, he said. Enough that they would have each other, but not so many that you could not give them all attention. That is a wise way to think about it, Nora said. There was a pause, and then Quinn said, You will be a good mother, I can tell. How can you tell? She asked, genuinely curious. The way you talk about the baby, the way you sing to your belly when you think no one is listening. The way you are already making plans and preparing things. That baby is lucky to have you. Nora felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the fire. "Thank you, Quinn, and thank you for everything you have done. I do not know how I will ever repay you." "You do not owe me anything," he said firmly. "This is what decent people do for each other." But it was becoming more than that, and they both knew it. The looks lasted a little longer. The accidental touches sent sparks through her. When Quinn smiled at something she said, her heart beat faster. She told herself it was wrong, that she was still mourning Thomas, that she was pregnant with another man's child. But her heart did not seem to care about those logical arguments. One evening in late February, Quinn came back from town with a troubled expression. He sat down heavily at the table, and Nora felt worry spike through her. "What happened?" she asked. "I ran into Jack Morrison at the general store," Quinn said. "He works for Margaret Whitmore. He told me she has been spreading rumors about you all over town, saying you ran off with a lover, that you were unfaithful to Thomas, that the baby you are carrying is another man's." Nora felt her stomach twist. I knew she believed that, but to spread it around town like gossip is cruel. "It gets worse," Quinn said quietly. "She is also saying that you are living with me now in sin, that we are playing house while pretending you are some innocent widow." "But that is not true," Nora said, standing up quickly. "You have been nothing but a perfect gentleman. You sleep in the bunkhouse. We have done nothing wrong." "I know that, and you know that, but Margaret is poisoning the well," Quinn said. "She is a respected woman in this community, and people believe her." "Then I need to leave," Nora said, panic rising in her chest. "I will not let her ruin your reputation because of me. I will go to San Antonio immediately." "No," Quinn said, standing to face her. "You are not going anywhere in your condition. That baby could come any day now. You are not traveling." "But she is destroying your good name because of me," Nora said, tears streaming down her face. Quinn stepped closer, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Let me tell you something about reputation. It is only worth protecting if you are willing to compromise who you are to keep it. I am not. I am not going to throw you out to satisfy the gossips. I am not going to let you risk your life and your baby's life because Margaret Whitmore is a bitter, hateful woman." "Quinn," she whispered, looking up at him. "I am not done," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "The truth is, Nora, I do not want you to leave. Not now, not after the baby is born, not ever. These past weeks with you here have been the happiest I have had in years. I know it is too soon. I know you are still grieving. I know I have no right to feel this way about a woman who is carrying another man's child. But I do. I care about you. I care about that baby, and if Margaret wants to say we are together, then maybe we should be." Nora stared at him, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. "What are you saying?" "I am saying marry me," Quinn said. "Marry me before the baby comes. Let me give you and that child my name and my protection. Let me be the father that baby deserves. I know I am not Thomas. I know I can never replace him in your heart. But I swear to you, I will spend every day trying to make you happy. I will love that baby as my own. I will be a good husband to you if you will let me." "Quinn, I cannot ask you to do that," Nora said, even as her heart screamed yes. "It is too much. You would be taking on another man's child, a wife with a ruined reputation, all the gossip and judgment that will come with it." "I am not asking you to ask me," Quinn said. "I am offering because I want to, because somewhere in the past 2 months I fell in love with you, Nora Owens. I fell in love with your strength, your kindness, your laugh, the way you hum while you cook, the way you talk to the baby like it can already hear you. I fell in love with all of you, and I will not apologize for it." Tears were flowing freely down Nora's face now. "I love you too," she whispered. "I have been so afraid to admit it, so afraid it was wrong or too soon or a betrayal of Thomas. But I do. I love you, Quinn Dalton." He kissed her then, gentle and sweet, his hands cradling her face like she was something precious. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "Is that a yes?" he asked. "Yes," she said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, I will marry you." They were married 3 days later by the preacher in Presidio, with Quinn's 2 ranch hands serving as witnesses. Nora wore a simple dress that Quinn had bought for her in town, letting out the seams to accommodate her belly. She carried wildflowers that Quinn had somehow found despite the late winter cold, and when the preacher pronounced them man and wife, Quinn's kiss was full of promise and hope. The baby came 2 weeks later on a bright March morning. Doc Watson arrived just in time, and Quinn paced outside the cabin, his hands shaking every time Nora cried out. It was the longest 6 hours of his life, but when the baby's wail finally filled the air, he nearly collapsed with relief. "You can come in now," Doc Watson called. Quinn entered to find Nora propped up against pillows, exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up at him with tears of joy streaming down her face. "It is a boy," she said softly. Quinn sat on the edge of the bed, looking down at the impossibly small face peeking out from the blankets. The baby had dark hair and was sleeping now, his tiny fist pressed against his cheek. "He is perfect," Quinn breathed. "Would you like to hold him?" Nora asked. Quinn nodded, terrified and excited in equal measure. Nora placed the baby in his arms, showing him how to support the head. The weight of this tiny life in his hands filled Quinn with a fierce protectiveness he had never felt before. This was his son now, in every way that mattered. "What should we name him?" Nora asked. "You should choose," Quinn said. "He is your baby." "He is our baby," Nora corrected gently. "You are his father, Quinn. The man who raises a child is the father, not just the man who provided the seed. Thomas would have loved him, but he is not here. You are, so you get to help choose his name." Quinn felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I always liked the name Samuel after my grandfather, but only if you approve." "Samuel Dalton," Nora said, testing the name. "It is strong, I like it." The first weeks with a newborn were challenging but beautiful. Samuel was a good baby, only fussing when he was hungry or needed changing. Quinn would wake in the night when the baby cried and sit with Nora while she nursed him, sometimes singing soft songs he remembered from his childhood. Nora watched her husband with their son and fell more in love with him every day. He was patient and gentle, never complaining about the sleepless nights or the constant demands of a newborn. He changed diapers without being asked, walked the floor with Samuel when he was fussy, and looked at the baby like he was the most miraculous thing in the world. "You are a natural father," she told him one evening as they sat together on the porch, Samuel sleeping in his cradle beside them. "Most men would not be so hands-on." "Most men are fools then," Quinn said. "These days go by fast. Samuel will be grown before we know it. I am not missing a moment of it." In April, they had their first confrontation with the past. Margaret Whitmore showed up at the ranch unannounced, her face twisted with anger. "I heard you married her," she said to Quinn, not even looking at Nora. "I heard you claimed Thomas's bastard as your own." "That baby is not a bastard," Quinn said coldly, stepping between Margaret and the cabin where Nora was inside with Samuel. "He is my son, legally and in every other way, and I will thank you to get off my property." "I want to see the child," Margaret demanded. "If it is really Thomas's son, I have a right." "You have no rights here," Quinn said, his voice hard as iron. "You threw Nora out into a blizzard to die. You tried to murder her and that baby with your cruelty. You spread lies about her all over town. You have no claim to that child, and you never will." "Thomas was my son," Margaret said, and for the first time Nora heard pain in her voice instead of just anger. "That baby is all I have left of him. Nora came out of the cabin then, Samuel in her arms. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said quietly, "I am sorry for your loss, I truly am. I loved Thomas and I know you did too, but what you did to me was unforgivable. You tried to kill us out of pride and suspicion. This baby is Thomas's son. I swear it on everything I hold sacred. But he will never know you. I will not let you near him. You made your choice that night you threw me out and you have to live with it." Margaret stared at the baby, her face working through a dozen emotions. "He looks like Thomas did as an infant," she whispered. "He does," Nora agreed. "And he will grow up knowing his birth father was a good man. But his real father, the one raising him, loving him, providing for him, that is Quinn. And this is Samuel's family now. We are his family." Margaret looked at Quinn, then back at Nora, and something in her seemed to break. "I was wrong," she said, her voice cracking. "I was so angry after Thomas died, so lost. I needed someone to blame, and I chose you. I convinced myself you had betrayed him because it was easier than accepting that he was just gone. And that night when I threw you out, I was half mad with grief. I told myself you deserved it, that you had brought shame on us. But you were right to hate me. I tried to kill you and my grandchild. I am a monster." Nora felt unexpected pity stir in her chest. "You were grieving," she said. "Grief makes people do terrible things." "It is no excuse," Margaret said. "I do not expect your forgiveness. I do not deserve it, but I want you to know I am sorry, truly, deeply sorry." Quinn looked at Nora, leaving the decision to her. She thought about holding on to anger, about making Margaret suffer as she had suffered. But what good would it do? The woman looked broken, aged 10 years in the few months since Nora had last seen her. "I cannot forget what you did," Nora said carefully. "And I cannot let you into our lives fully, but I will not shut the door completely either. You may visit Samuel on occasion, supervised if you can be civil and respectful. He should know his grandmother if she can be the grandmother he deserves." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I will be, I promise." It was not a perfect resolution, but it was a start. Margaret visited once a month, always bringing something for Samuel, always respectful and quiet. She never stayed long, but Nora could see her drinking in the sight of her grandson, treasuring every moment. Over time, the visits became less awkward, and while they would never be close, a certain peace settled between them. The summer brought heat and hard work. The ranch thrived under Quinn's careful management, and they hired another ranch hand to help with the growing herd. Samuel grew chubby and happy, his laugh becoming the best sound in the world to both his parents. One evening in July, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset while Samuel played with wooden blocks Quinn had carved, Nora said, "I have been thinking about something." "What is that?" Quinn asked, his hand finding hers. "I want more children," she said. "I want Samuel to have brothers and sisters. I want to fill this house with the noise and laughter I always dreamed of." Quinn smiled, his whole face lighting up. "I want that too. I have wanted it since the day I married you, but I did not want to pressure you." "You could never pressure me," Nora said. "You are the most considerate man I have ever known." She paused, then said with a shy smile, "And I should tell you, I think we might already be on our way to that big family." Quinn's eyes went wide. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying that Samuel might have a brother or sister by next spring," Nora confirmed. Quinn let out a whoop of joy and scooped her up in his arms, spinning her around while she laughed. Samuel clapped his hands, not understanding but delighted by his father's happiness. That night, as they lay in bed together, Quinn's hand resting on her still flat belly, he said, "I want you to know something. I do not think of Samuel as anything but my son. There is no part of me that sees him as Thomas's child or anything less than fully mine, but I want to honor Thomas too. He was a good man, and he gave me the greatest gift by bringing you into this world where I could find you." "That is beautiful," Nora said, tears in her eyes. "And Thomas would have liked you. You are both good men, just in different ways." "I hope Samuel grows up to be like both of us," Quinn said. "Thomas's kindness and my stubbornness." Nora laughed. "That is a dangerous combination." The second baby came in March of 1883, almost exactly a year after Samuel's birth. This time Quinn was in the room, holding Nora's hand through every contraction, wiping her face with cool cloths, telling her how strong she was. When the baby emerged, Doc Watson announced it was a girl. "A daughter," Quinn said, his voice full of wonder. He cut the cord himself, hands shaking slightly, then watched as Doc Watson cleaned her up and handed her to Nora. She was tiny and perfect, with Quinn's dark hair and what looked like it would be Nora's green eyes. She had a powerful set of lungs and was not afraid to use them. "She is fierce," Nora said fondly. "What should we name her, Rose?" Quinn said immediately. "After your mother." Nora looked at him with such love it took his breath away. "You remembered that my mother's name is Rose." "I remember everything you tell me," Quinn said simply. Rose Dalton was indeed fierce, demanding attention and affection in equal measure. Samuel, now a toddler, was fascinated by his baby sister and would sit beside her cradle for hours, talking to her in his baby babble. Quinn and Nora's hearts were full to bursting. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. The ranch prospered, Samuel grew into a bright and curious little boy, and Rose thrived. In 1884 they welcomed twin boys, which was both a joy and a challenge. Quinn joked that they had gotten to 4 children faster than expected, but he could not have been happier. Nora named the twins Henry and William, and they were identical except for a small birthmark on Henry's shoulder. They were easy babies, content to share a cradle and seeming to comfort each other when one fussed. By 1885, the Dalton Ranch was one of the most successful in the region. Quinn had expanded the herd and built a new barn. They had 4 ranch hands now and were considering buying more land. The cabin had been expanded too, with 2 more rooms added so the children each had space. Samuel, now 4 years old, followed Quinn everywhere, wanting to help with ranch work. He was too young for most tasks, but Quinn found small jobs for him, teaching him about the animals and the land with patience and love. "He worships you," Nora told Quinn one evening as they watched Samuel try to mimic his father's walk. "He is a good boy," Quinn said. "They all are." "You have done an amazing job with them." "We have done an amazing job," Nora corrected. "I could not do this without you." One afternoon in the fall of 1885, a stranger rode up to the ranch. He was an older man, well-dressed, with a silver beard and kind eyes. He introduced himself as Thomas Whitmore's uncle, Harold, from St. Louis. "I heard about what happened with Margaret," he said as they sat in the parlor, the children playing outside with one of the ranch hands keeping watch. "I came to apologize on behalf of the family and to see my great-nephew if you will allow it." "How did you hear about it?" Nora asked. "Margaret wrote to me," Harold said. "She told me everything, how she threw you out, how Quinn saved you, how she has been trying to make amends. She is ashamed, and she asked me to come make sure you and the boy are all right." "Samuel is doing wonderfully," Nora said. "He is happy and healthy and very loved." "I can see that," Harold said, looking around at the comfortable, well-kept home. "May I meet him?" They called Samuel in, and Harold's eyes filled with tears when he saw the boy. "He looks just like Thomas at that age," he said. "It is remarkable." Samuel, who had inherited his birth father's friendly nature and his adoptive father's confidence, shook Harold's hand solemnly and said, "Pleased to meet you, sir." "The pleasure is mine, young man," Harold said. "I am your father's uncle, which makes me your great-uncle." Samuel looked confused. "My father is right here," he said, pointing at Quinn. "And so he is," Harold said gently. "I meant your other father, the one who is in heaven now." "Oh," Samuel said, understanding. "Mama told me about him. He liked horses." "He did indeed," Harold said, smiling through tears. Harold stayed for dinner, charmed by the whole family. He held baby Rose and cooed over the twins, and he told stories about Thomas as a boy that made Nora laugh and cry at the same time. Before he left, he pressed an envelope into Nora's hands. "This is for Samuel, for his future." Thomas had a trust fund that his father set up. Margaret wanted nothing to do with it after Thomas died, but it is Samuel's by right. I have been managing it, and it has grown considerably. When he turns 18, he will have a substantial inheritance. "We cannot accept this," Quinn started to say, but Harold held up a hand. "It is not a gift. It is his birthright. Thomas would have wanted his son to have it. Use it for his education or save it for when he is old enough to understand. But it is his, and I will not take no for an answer." After Harold left, Nora and Quinn talked long into the night about the money. They agreed to save it for Samuel, to let him decide what to do with it when he was old enough. It felt right, honoring the man who had fathered Samuel even as Quinn raised him. The years continued to pass in a blur of happiness. In 1887, Nora gave birth to another daughter, Grace, who was sweet and gentle from birth. In 1889, their last child arrived, another boy they named James, who was the spitting image of Quinn and seemed determined to keep them all on their toes with his adventurous spirit. By 1890, they had 6 children ranging from 9-year-old Samuel to baby James. The ranch was thriving, and they had become pillars of the community. Margaret visited regularly and had become a doting if somewhat reserved grandmother. The scandal of Nora's arrival had long since faded, replaced by respect for the family Quinn and Nora had built. One evening, as they celebrated Samuel's 9th birthday with a cake Nora had baked and presents the children had helped wrap, Quinn pulled Nora aside. "You remember the night I found you in the snow?" he asked. "Every detail," she said. "I was certain I was going to die." "I think about it sometimes," Quinn said, "about how close we came to never having this. If I had ridden out 10 minutes later, if I had taken a different road, if the snow had been heavier. We almost missed each other." "But we did not," Nora said, taking his hand. "You found me. You saved me. You loved me and Samuel when you had no reason to. You gave us a family and a home and a life I never dreamed I could have." "You gave me all of that too," Quinn said. "Before you, I was just going through the motions. The ranch was successful, but it was empty. You filled it with love and laughter and life. You made it a home." "We made it a home," Nora said. "Together." They kissed, a sweet lingering kiss that spoke of years of love and partnership, while inside the house their children's laughter rang out. Samuel was teaching Rose how to play the harmonica Quinn had given him, and the twins were arguing good-naturedly about who got the bigger piece of cake, while Grace tried to feed James frosting and he smeared it all over his face instead. "This is everything," Quinn said. "This moment, this family, this life. It is everything I never knew I needed." "I love you," Nora said. "I loved Thomas, and I will always be grateful for the time we had and for the son we created together. But you are the love of my life, Quinn Dalton. You are my home." "And you are mine," he said. "Always and forever." As the sun set over the Texas plains, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, the Dalton family gathered around the table. Samuel said grace, thanking God for family and food and love. The children ate and laughed and squabbled in the way children do. Quinn and Nora watched them, hands intertwined under the table, their hearts full. Later, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, They sat on the porch together as they had done countless nights before. The stars were bright overhead, and somewhere in the distance a coyote howled. "You ever regret it?" Nora asked quietly. "Taking me in, marrying me, raising another man's child as your own?" Quinn looked at her, his eyes serious. "Not for one single second. Samuel is my son in every way that matters. And even if he was not, even if there were no children at all, I would still choose you. Every time in every life I would choose you." "That is the most romantic thing you have ever said to me," Nora said, her voice thick with emotion. "I have been practicing," Quinn admitted with a grin. She laughed and kissed him, this man who had saved her life and given her a love story more beautiful than any she could have imagined. From tragedy and cruelty had come this beautiful life, this perfect family, this deep and abiding love. In the house, Samuel stirred in his sleep, dreaming of horses and adventure. He was a happy child, secure in the love of his parents and siblings. He knew the story of his birth father, the man who had died before he could meet him. But Quinn was his father in every memory, every moment that mattered. When he thought of family, he thought of Quinn teaching him to ride, Quinn helping him with arithmetic, Quinn sitting with him when he was sick, Quinn cheering at every small accomplishment. As Samuel grew, he would come to understand the sacrifice Quinn had made, choosing to raise another man's child, giving him his name and his love without reservation. He would be grateful for it, and he would try to be the kind of man both his fathers would be proud of. But that was years in the future. For now, Samuel was just a boy with a loving family. And on the porch, his parents sat together, watching the stars and counting their blessings. The story of how Nora and Quinn met would become family legend, told and retold to children and grandchildren. It was a story of cruelty and kindness, desperation and rescue, fear and love. It was a story of how the worst moment of someone's life could lead to the best, how redemption could come from the most unlikely places, and how love could bloom even in the middle of a blizzard. Margaret eventually made peace with what she had done, and though she and Nora never became close, they developed a cordial relationship built on mutual respect and love for the children. Harold continued to visit every few years, a connection to Thomas that Samuel appreciated as he got older. The ranch continued to prosper. Quinn and Nora worked side by side, building something to pass on to their children. They had their struggles, as all families do. There were lean years when the cattle prices dropped and difficult winters when they wondered if they would make it through. There were childhood illnesses that terrified them and disagreements that had to be worked through. But through it all, their love remained constant, a foundation that never wavered. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1892, Quinn gave Nora a locket with pictures of all 6 children inside. "So you can carry them with you always," he said. "I will treasure it," she said, clasping it around her neck. "But I have something for you too." She handed him a leather-bound journal. Inside, she had written the story of their life together, from the night he found her in the snow to the present day. She had detailed every milestone, every sweet moment, every challenge they had overcome. "I want our children to know the whole story someday," she said. "I want them to understand how much love went into building this family." Quinn read through it with tears in his eyes. "This is beautiful," he said. "You have a gift with words." "I had a beautiful story to tell," Nora said simply. As the years continued to pass, the children grew. Samuel inherited the ranch eventually, running it with the same care and dedication his father had shown. Rose married a schoolteacher and moved to Fort Worth. Henry became a veterinarian, and William studied law. Grace married a rancher from a neighboring county, and James became a horse breeder known throughout Texas. Quinn and Nora lived to see their grandchildren and even a few great-grandchildren. They grew old together, their love deepening with each passing year. When Quinn died in 1920 at the age of 70, Nora held his hand and whispered that she would see him soon. She followed him 6 months later, dying peacefully in her sleep in the house they had built together. They were buried side by side in the Presidio Cemetery, their headstone reading Quinn and Nora Dalton, beloved parents and grandparents, together forever. Next to their plot was a smaller stone for Thomas Whitmore, placed there by Samuel so that all three people who had made his life possible could rest near each other. But that was decades in the future. On this night in 1890, they were still young, still building their life together. The children were healthy and happy, the ranch was thriving, and their love was as strong as ever. "What are you thinking about?" Quinn asked, noticing Nora's contemplative expression. "I am thinking about that night in the snow," she said. "About how terrified I was, how certain I was that I was going to die. If someone had told me then that 9 years later I would be sitting on a porch with a husband I adore and 6 beautiful children sleeping inside, I would never have believed them." "Life is strange that way," Quinn agreed. "The worst moments can lead to the best ones." "I am glad you found me," Nora said softly. "I am glad I found you too," Quinn said. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Nora Dalton." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the ranch, feeling the gentle breeze, existing in the perfect peace of a life well lived and a love well earned. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, but tonight was for gratitude and contentment. Inside, Samuel woke briefly and heard the murmur of his parents' voices on the porch. He smiled and rolled over, secure in the knowledge that they were there, that they would always be there, that he was loved and safe. He fell back asleep, dreaming of the future and all the possibilities it held. The love story of Quinn and Nora Dalton would endure through generations, a testament to the power of kindness, the strength of love, and the beauty of choosing to see the best in people even in the darkest circumstances. It was a love story born in a blizzard and tempered by adversity, but it shone brighter than the Texas sun and lasted longer than the stars. And on that porch in Presidio, Texas, in the year 1890, 2 people who had found each other against all odds sat together, their hands intertwined, their hearts at peace, their love eternal. It was, in every way that mattered, a perfect happy ending and the beginning of countless happy tomorrows yet to come.